white marble statues, blue-eyed movie queens, Elizabeth Taylor in eyeliner. Cleopatra wasn't European. She ruled Africa. She lived in Egypt, and Egypt is on the continent of Africa. If Cleopatra was so obviously white, why does her bloodline disappear the moment you look for it? Curiosity loop locked. Cleopatra didn't just sit on a throne looking pretty for Roman poets. She ran Egypt like she owned the place, because she did. The woman spoke at least 9 languages. Greek was her mother tongue, but she also mastered Egyptian, the first and only Ptolemy to bother. Plutarch, writing a century later, had to admit it. Cleopatra could talk to priests, soldiers, diplomats, no interpreter needed. You think a lightweight pulls that off in a city as wild as Alexandria? Alexandria wasn't some Sleeble outpost. It was a North African powerhouse, packed with Greeks, Egyptians, Nubians, Jews, Libyans, Persians, 500,000 people hustling for power, gold, and grain. Cleopatra ruled over all of them. She wasn't just parading around in gold jewelry, she was negotiating with Rome, keeping Egypt's grain flowing, and making sure her face and her name stayed stamped on every coin that mattered. Those coins, they're not just souvenirs. They paid for fleets, armies, temples, and bribes. Try running a kingdom without a real navy when Rome is breathing down your neck. When Julius Caesar showed up, Cleopatra didn't just flutter her eyelashes. She rolled herself into a carpet, snuck past palace guards, and cut a deal that put her back on the throne. That's not a damsel in distress. That's a player who knows how to set the board. With Caesar gone, she didn't miss a beat, and Mark Antony came calling, and Cleopatra's ships, soldiers, and gold kept him in the game. When Rome split in two, she was right there, commanding her own fleet at Actium. 60 ships were under her direct command. Octavian's propaganda painted her as a temptress, but the receipts say otherwise. Look at the temples Dendera and Philae, her name carved in hieroglyphs, dressed as Isis, the living goddess. She gave out grain to hungry Egyptians, funded priesthoods, and made sure the Nile's riches stayed in African hands as long as possible. The Ptolemies owned half the farmland in Egypt, and Cleopatra squeezed every last coin out of it to keep her kingdom standing while Rome circled like a shark. So why do we keep hearing about her beauty, her lovers, her eyeliner? Who benefits from shrinking a black queen down to a bedroom story? The records show a ruler, a linguist, a naval commander, a woman who could buy and sell half the Roman Senate. If you're still picturing a Victorian English woman wrapped in linen, you're missing the point and missing the real Cleopatra. But when you start asking about her family, the trail goes cold. The receipts dry up. The official records suddenly have nothing to say. Funny how that works. Ask for Cleopatra's birth certificate, and all you get is a shrug. The Ptolemaic dynasty wrote down every tax, every temple grant, every last bushel of wheat. But when it comes to the women who made the kings, mothers, grandmothers, even some queens, the paperwork vanishes. The official story loves a father's name. Mothers, only if they were co-rulers or convenient for the propaganda machine. Everybody else gets erased like they never existed. Cleopatra's father is Ptolemy XII, straight out of Macedonian Greece. 6 generations back, the line is clear as a family reunion photo, but the maternal side is a locked door. Scholars throw out guesses. Cleopatra Fig. Tryphena, maybe a full sister of Ptolemy XII, maybe a cousin, maybe a local Egyptian priestess. Some say her mother was a political ghost, a name lost on purpose to keep the dynasty looking pure and Greek, even as the bloodlines got tangled like a box of old necklaces. Let us talk about those tangled lines. The Ptolemies married their siblings like it was an Olympic sport. Brother married sister, cousin married cousin, uncle married niece. They called it divine, said it made them like Isis and Osiris. But all it really did was blur the family tree until nobody could say for sure who was what. If Cleopatra's mother was her father's sister, that keeps the Macedonian story neat, But if she was a concubine or a local queen, now you have African, Egyptian, maybe even Nubian roots sneaking in the back door, and the records go silent. This was not accidental. The Ptolemaic bureaucracy was a machine. They kept king lists, priestly rolls, land deeds, and tax ledgers. But when it came to maternal lines, unless a woman was needed for a temple carving or an alliance, she got left off the scroll. Ptolemy XII's own mother, unnamed. His grandmother also missing. Cleopatra's grandmother, take a wild guess? For a dynasty obsessed with keeping power in the family, the silence around women is loud. Meanwhile, Alexandria was bursting with color and language. Greeks at the top, Egyptians running temples and farms, Nubians guarding the southern border, Jews running banks, Libyans and Persians trading in the streets. In that kind of city, do you think the royal palace was a genetic fortress? The elite might have pretended, but the city itself was a North African crossroads, and the palace doors were not as tight as the records want you to believe. So the next time someone swears up and down that Cleopatra was pure Greek, ask them to show you the receipts. The receipts are not missing. They were never written. History got a selective memory when it comes to who counts as royal, who counts as African, and who gets to be erased. The empty spaces on Cleopatra's family tree are not an accident. They are the point. In those gaps, a whole continent's claim to its queen hangs in the balance. Walk into a museum in London or Paris in the 1920s and check the label under Cleopatra's bust. Suddenly, she is not just a queen, she is a Greek ruler of a Mediterranean kingdom. Funny how that works. When Egypt sits right on African soil, during British and French occupation, Napoleon's troops in 1798, British boots in 1882, curators and textbook writers got busy. Catalogs from the British Museum started emphasizing her Macedonian roots, brushing off the African address like it was a typo. Old catalogs quietly swapped out Egyptian queen for Greek dynasty, and school books followed suit. Why? Because colonial powers wanted Egypt's glory, but not Africa's. They needed the pyramids and pharaohs to feel like their inheritance, not Black history. So they rewrote the labels, edited the family tree, and locked the doors on any story that did not fit the empire's mirror. That is not just history. It is narrative control, stamped in ink and taught to millions. Elizabeth Taylor steps out in 1963, draped in pearls, blue eyes blazing, and suddenly the world decides, this is Cleopatra. Hollywood didn't just cast a white woman, they locked her in marble. Fox Studios spent more than any film before, plastering Taylor's face on posters from Tokyo to Rio. The message was not subtle. Cleopatra was now a Mediterranean beauty, not an African queen. Movie magazines called her the last pharaoh of the West. Studio press kits skipped over Alexandria's melting pot, skipped over her Egyptian language skills, and sold a fantasy fit for suburban living rooms. That image stuck. Textbooks lined up behind the movie, classrooms taught Cleopatra as a white icon, and the rest of the world followed suit. Ask most people today who Cleopatra was, and they will picture Elizabeth Taylor, not a ruler from African soil. That is how a myth becomes a fact. Just add Technicolor and a marketing budget. Flip on your phone right now and type in Cleopatra. Watch the comments section light up like a bonfire. Some people swear she is the last great African queen. Others shout back with DNA charts and marble busts. Scroll a little further and you will see the split. Black Twitter calling out erasure. History buffs quoting old museum catalogs. TikTokers remixing Elizabeth Taylor clips with side eyes and receipts. One Netflix trailer drops, and suddenly everybody is an expert on Macedonian bloodlines. But why does it matter so much? Because who gets to claim Cleopatra is not just about a face on a coin, it is about who gets to claim Africa's glory, who gets to see themselves in power, and who gets written out of the story altogether. So what's it going to be? Do you claim Cleopatra as Africa's queen or hand her over to the empire story? Pick your side. History's not neutral. Cleopatra's story isn't just about Egypt, It's about who gets to claim Africa's legacy. Today, the struggle over her image is a struggle over black brilliance and who gets written out. History ain't neutral, so whose version are you living in? Drop your thoughts below. Let's get into it.